And this session is being recorded.
Excellent. All right, so with this session, this first training, it's our site admin training. And on this one, Ray, because your internet obviously doesn't have a lot of things that are populated yet, obviously it's brand new. So on this one, I tend to spend most of my time in my demo site because I do have, especially at the beginning, the ability to kind of show you examples of things.
Sure.
And then we'll kind of be flipping back and forth between the two.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, so that way you can kind of see how it looks on yours versus kind of my demo site. So this one's going to combine, initially we're going to start out, just covering these top features here. So obviously the advantage of them, and they'll ultimately kind of tie back at some point in time to future training. So, mandatory reads, we're going to talk about that in one of our upcoming trainings. But the biggest thing about today's training is being a site administrator. It puts you in as a power user. And then that gives you the ability to, set up this top menu, set up any security that you may need around it, who can see what, who has access to working in certain areas of the internet. So we'll spend probably about 80% of our time in the application settings. As we go through stuff today, Ray, please ask questions if I didn't.
For sure.
Yeah, if I need to clarify something, because I want to make sure you're very comfortable.
I have one or two right off the hop. Is there a limit to the number of administrators you or members you can grant administrative rights?
No, you get to decide how many power users you want. You get to decide how many administrators should be in a certain area. That's going to be completely up to whatever needs you guys have.
Great.
Now what we do kind of recommend though, so this power user permission, because it has the ability to really set up and determine kind of how the internet functions for you, this one should be kind of well thought out on this one. So typically, depending on how large you guys are, anywhere from 4 to 8 up to 10, sometimes I've seen with some of our larger ones, just because like I said, it's the ability, when you make a change back here, it's made globally, so you just don't want everybody having this type of permission.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that makes sense.
Okay. But otherwise, just kind of starting the top here, as you know, your logo at some point in time is going to go here. Okay, so if you click on your logo or go to home, it's going to go to the home landing page. And typically the responsibility of your site administrators, or typically what have your power user permission here, ultimately those individuals, those 4, 6, how many ever have that permission, are then responsible for the organization's home landing page. Because you need that power user cog, in essence, in order to edit the organization's home landing page. Okay, so that's typically a responsibility of the site administrator, is managing the organization's home landing page, all these little widgets in here. Are you pretty comfortable with widgets?
Getting there.
Okay.
I probably need a bit of refresher on a few of them because I haven't dived back in, but we'll be covering that in with the content managers area, won't we?
Correct. Yes,
Great.
we will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll actually spend almost a good hour. Depends on, I can't remember how your time is laid out, but yeah, we will devote an entire training to the widgets.
Oh, that's perfect.
So yeah, you'll be very comfortable when we get done with that. The next icon over here, regardless of whose site you're looking at, is the notifications. Now, one thing I want to point out, kind of from an end user's perspective, as well as you being a site administrator and Brom and those guys being site administrators, the individual now has the ability to set their own, determine their own settings. So by default, when a notification goes out, it goes out email and it goes out via this notifications bell icon. Well, if they would like to maybe try to eliminate some of their email traffic a little bit, they can go into the settings, and they actually now have the ability to say, you know what, if it's regarding a calendar, somebody's sent out a calendar type of invite or something, maybe they only want to receive it through the notifications bell. They want to clean up their email stuff again. So they now have the ability to change some of these. Now, which I think is a good thing. But here's where I think a site administrator sometimes needs to think in advance, going, okay, are there anything that we really deem as truly important and we want to force it out so that they can't change it? So my thing that I always point out to site administrators is pages. On a page, you can create those mandatory reads. And if you deem something as a mandatory read, obviously it's extremely important to you. So this might be in a situation where you do want to lock that down to where the end user couldn't come in here, which I've already done here in this example, and they can't even click it. So they are forced to receive it through the email as well as notification. And push means it's going through the phone app.
Okay.
Okay, so now for you to do that as a power user, okay, it's just going to be kind of your first look behind the scenes here. It's going to be behind this cog here. There's this little application settings. So if we look at your site, right here, we go application settings. All right, the notifications are in this area called the control panel.
Okay.
And it is going to be down here, manage notification settings. So you and Brom, and who was the other guy that was going to help you out? Was it Dan?
Dan. Yeah.
Dan, that's right. So you guys can talk about it and say, okay, are there any of these notifications we truly want to lock down? Because by default, you can see it always goes email and notification. And if there are some that you want to lock down, what you can do, and like I said, these are anything maybe dealing with mandatory reads or whatever. If you want to keep it at the default setting and they cannot change it, you can just literally lock that down. Okay. And then when you click save, it's going to be a global change. So that, I mean, that affects everyone. Okay. Now, there might be sometimes, Ray, where you're going, you know what, or, you know, maybe we just want it to go through the notification. So if you ever come in and you change something, so this one here, so where a page has been added as a category, you're going, you know what, they probably don't have to receive that as an email. Maybe we want everyone to receive it just through the notifications bell icon. If you change one of the default settings, you have to force that change out, because otherwise it still thinks it's, I didn't change that. I won't change it for you now, but if I did truly just say go through the notification and confirmed it, then over here it would just read notification. And if I do want to make a change, I have to select force, and then when I save it, it forces out my new change globally to everyone. Okay, but that's still, at that point in time though, they could still change it. So if I want to switch it, I would force it, and then if I don't want them to change my change, in essence, I could then lock it down where it grays it out for them. So you can just force something out and then they can still change it, or you can force it, lock it to where they cannot change it.
Okay.
Okay. So your choice on that. So I'll kind of reset your settings so you guys can decide how you want to proceed with that. Okay. All right, so that's kind of both perspectives there. Now this one up here, this is your presence icon. Okay, so right up in here, it's a manual set. So if you were logged in here right now, Ray, and you went to, you're doing this training, you can set it to busy, obviously, okay, or you're available, whatever. Now, if you log out to go home, let's say you put it at busy, and then you come back in the morning, you would have to remember to constantly change this, okay, because it is a manual set. Now, the one thing I want you guys to know about is you can, depending on if you're going to think people will use it or not, you can hide this functionality. It doesn't delete it, it just hides it until you maybe want to use it later on.
I would likely think we would hide it because I'm not sure they would get into the behavior, the new behavior of identifying themselves as being available.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just do that for you right now while we're in here. And that way they don't, that way if you forget about it, what it's going to do is generate questions for you that you probably don't want to answer.
Right.
So let's just go and remove that right now. So once again, that's an application setting, and it's once again in the control panel. Now anytime we're looking at kind of something that's along this top toolbar, there's a place called Manage Application Variables, and it's also where a lot of your default settings, so anything dealing with blogging, here's the default settings, anything dealing with pages, here's the default settings. So if you ever want to see, can we change something, the application variables are where all the default settings are at for you guys to modify. Now this one, because this is called your global toolbar, I'm just going to go to global here. All right, so it's either that one or it was the interact toolbar. Oh, it might be the interact toolbar, yeah. Okay, there's that present. So it was interact toolbar,
Gotcha.
So we just took that off. Okay, so now when we save that, we'll refresh your site here. Okay,
and it's
there you go, don't have to worry about that. Perfect. All right, so tasks, these are individual tasks, so whether you're logged in or you got Dan logged in or whoever, If you needed to do something, you type it in here, you click add, and you can have a little to-do list. So mine, when you look at it, I won't create any tasks in there, it would look like this. You just basically type and hit add. If you do have a lot, you can just click on see all, and it brings it into a nice screen. You can then add more tasks up here. You can filter, and you can also export the list if needed.
Great.
So you have a little task manager in there, which is really, it's one of the newer features. And I really kind of like it because I'm a very task-oriented person, so it's kind of nice to have that for me anyway.
Yeah, and it'll add functionality for discussions and meetings and activities for, oh yeah, I need to contact so-and-so, so you got a reminder in place, and so people could see stuff, or you can see them anyways.
Absolutely, yeah. The next icon over here, your mandatory reads. So when you do, let's say you got a policy change or whatever it happens to be, and it has to be pushed out as a mandatory read, this is what it looks like from our perspective, just like typical end user perspective. They would click it, see the title, you know, who authored it, and then when they click it, it's going to open the page, and then on the right hand side, then they could eventually mark it off. And then the next time they come here, this would be no longer here for them. Okay? So that's kind of what it's going to look like when you push it out. And then also it's going to be very visual up in here for them to know that they have mandatory reads. Now when we do our third training, it's the Content Manager 2 training, and I'm talking about how to migrate content over, building pages, uploading pages. One of the features is actually to turn on the mandatory read and push out the mandatory read. So I'll definitely cover in a future training how to push it out. And then obviously we'll have others on the call at that time, and we'll show them how it looks like, kind of once again from an end user's perspective. And then I'll take it a step further and show them that they can then go in and see the mandatory read, who's read it, who hasn't, send a reminder if needed, and that would be something once again that would be going through the notifications bell icon as well as an email. And they can also export the list if they needed to, print it out and keep maybe like a hard record in somebody's folder or something like that.
Now, when something is specified for a mandatory read, is it automatically global to all members, or can you specify, let's say, 6 or 7 people for a mandatory read?
You can. You can say it needs to just go out to 2 people. It can go out to 3 or 4 departments. It can go to the entire organization. So it's almost like sending out an email, you know, and you can send a distribution list and things like that. Same concept.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's the mandatory reads one. Now these 2 here I use quite a bit because obviously Interact, we have an internet, which would make sense. But these are watches, and watches do generate, once again, those notifications over here. Now there's 2 things you can watch. First and foremost, a category. So the big thing today is kind of getting used to Interact's terminology a little bit. A category is a folder. So if I went into your office, opened up a filing cabinet and pulled out a folder, I would expect obviously to see very specific documentation in that folder. Well, that's what a category is. It houses your pages. Whether you upload those pages or build out brand new pages, every page has to live in a category. So you can see this category here is called PTO, vacation, sick days. So if I wanted to find out some vacation information from an end user perspective, I would click and open up this category. And then you can see that there's 5 pages in here. 2 of them obviously were set to mandatory reads. What people can do is, if this is important information to them, okay, it helps them do their job better, okay, and they want to be notified every time somebody adds a new page to this category or even comes in and modifies one of these, what they can do is they can click here where it says manage a watch. So you can watch an entire category, whether that's 2 pages or 100 pages in there. And then the first time you come in, these will be unchecked. And they can decide if anytime a new page is added to the category to receive that notification. And they can also check if one of the existing pages is edited, they would like to get notified as well. Then they can come read it when they get a chance to stay on top of content that's of value to them. So that will actually generate notifications. Like I said, this is a category, so it'd be like a folder for us.
Sure.
Okay. Now, sometimes it's not the entire category because you're going, shoot, there's 50 pages in there. I don't need to be notified every time somebody edits all 50. If it's really just one, so maybe it's this one here is really important to you, and every time somebody updates the medical appointment one, you need to be notified. You can just watch down to a page level. Okay, so, and then same thing if, so James is the author here, if he goes in and edits it, then this person, you would get notified, and then you could read it when you get time. Now, the other thing as we go through stuff today, Ray, with you being a power user, I'm always set as a power user. You'll always see the ability to edit, delete things. Just know that everybody else, they will not see these buttons.
That's good permission. To know.
Yeah. Yeah, because some people get really nervous going, you mean anybody can delete my pages? No. Once again, very permission-based. All right, so you can watch an entire category or just watch certain pages, okay, that are of value to you. Now, the other thing you can also select up here are your favorites. Now, favorites are like when we're on the internet and we bookmark something because we utilize that, that website frequently throughout the week, throughout the day, and it's just quick. Well, that's what basically your favorites are. Now, you can favorite a page. So once again, if I reference this on a day-to-day basis, okay, maybe it's a list of sales and prices or something. Well, then ultimately what it ends up doing is it creates a list, and then you click it and it just goes and opens up that page very quickly. Now, these do not generate notifications. They're literally just a list of links to pages. So you can have a little list up in there. And that'll be the same thing that you have. So you get your mandatory reads, your watches, categories, and pages, and then you've got your favorites here. Now, question for you while we're hovered over favorites, because everybody's a little different. Is this actually spelled the way you guys would like it, F-A-V-O-U-R-I-T-S?
Yeah, that would be the Canadian spelling, yeah.
Okay, just want to double check that's the way you guys want it. Because there's a thing called system text. So when I'm obviously training people in the U.S., that is the first thing they typically want to change. And so, so system text can change that. So I just wanted to clarify that that is the way you guys wanted to remain.
Yeah, it's a Canadian thing. We add "use" to stuff.
Yeah, that's all right.
To words.
Yeah, first time I saw that, I'm like, have I been spelling the word favorite wrong forever? I was like, oh,
well, it's actually British. The
yeah.
Canadian thing is because we've kept a lot of British settings or English settings. England settings.
That's right. So I know some of the words, they look fancier than ours. I think they look more elegant than the way the United States spells things, but we hack everything up anyway, so we're really good at that. But yeah, I just want to double check and make sure that's spelled correctly for you guys, which sounds like it is. Yes, the other thing, obviously, when you are logged in, obviously your image is going to show here, whoever's logged in. A couple things just from, once again, kind of just a quick tour of things. Following and followers. How do you guys plan to use the internet on that? Now, it's not, like Facebook and things like that where you're trying to get as many, just random people to befriend you. A lot of times you will follow, maybe the CEO, you may follow other people have similar jobs that you do, things of that nature. And when you do follow, the nice thing about it is you can then always go directly to their timeline. And if you needed to maybe post something on their timeline, you could. So my question to you, and maybe you need to talk to Dan and Bram, do you want this to remain here? Because now one of the new functionalities is you can remove this just like we removed that presence icon so that people don't even know it exists up there. We can remove the influence score now, and you can also remove the profile completeness. So I don't expect you to make a decision today, but we do now have the ability to do that.
So the choice would be up to each individual of who they follow?
The choice, yes, yeah.
Yeah, so we could try it for a while. What I would likely recommend to the group, because it's a smaller group, is that that they follow Bram or Dan. Dan's the MOPA president, and Bram is the head of the largest committee, which is for government relations. So if you want to follow what's going on with the president, you would follow him.
Exactly.
So yes, and obviously what we've talked about with the members is that if somebody is like very keen on a particular area, there is actually students that are actually studying or getting ready to write their exams and take their degree. They would likely follow each other because they would trade information back and forth. So I would see the potential for people to say, well, I want to follow whatever's going on with a student group.
Absolutely.
And if
So
they
I
don't
kind
use
of
it, they can
think,
turn it off.
exactly, or if they don't use it, they don't have to decide to follow anybody. But if, so there is good use to that. The influence score, just so you know what it does, because it can cause questions, and once again, it just might be something you don't want to deal with. The influence scores, let's say that tomorrow you go and you upload 20 pages to the internet. Okay, well, I'll be honest with you, your influence score is not going to go up a bit, because ultimately you did your job, you migrated content over. But now, let's say one of those pages, Dan goes and reads it. He really likes it, so he clicks on the like button because you influenced him somehow with that content. Now your profile score will go up a little bit. He liked it so much, maybe he shared it out with Brom. Once again, your influence score can go up because something that you created has influenced one of your coworkers somehow. If you share your knowledge in forums and things of that nature, your influence score can go up. So some people get extremely confused, and they will come into we've had people go into their boss's office or manager and say, I just worked all day, my influence score did not go up a bit. And they just get really riled up about it because they just don't truly understand how that algorithm is set to run. So if you think it might cause just questions that you don't want to deal with, once again, there is a setting that we can take a check mark out and just hide it from here.
Can you separate out influence and profile, or do both have to go?
You can. No, it can just be one or the other.
Now, can you maybe explain profile? Is profile the level of completeness of what they filled out?
Yes.
Okay, that I would see keeping, because we want to encourage people to, the group has a tendency to have not done that in the past, and we've stressed that that's important to do. So because of the nature of Interact and its robustness we want people to specify who they work for, that whether they're a student or an orthotist, a prosthetist, so that we can, start to cluster information and customize it for those subgroups.
Perfect.
But they have to fill out their profile for us to be able to do that.
Right, and that makes absolute sense. So I'm in your site here. So you can see we can take that influence score out.
Yeah, let's take that off.
And, so we'll get rid of that one. This one sounds like would be a benefit, so they can follow, like you said, your Dan and some of those other individuals. And we'll keep the completeness score in there. So we'll go ahead and save that.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh your site here. Now, because let me actually log in as you. When I come into somebody's site, I always come in as an Interact admin, which means I don't have, notice how when I click on mine, I actually go to my profile wall. I don't have a profile for you guys, so that's why it takes me directly to the people directory, because I'm not a part of your, obviously, your organization. Yep. So that's why it's a little bit different in there. The other thing I was going to do is, while we're here, because we were talking about those fields on the profile, and once again, this is a control panel. No, fields. My fault. It is not. It's application settings. Once again, it's under Manage People. There is a place in here called Manage Profile Fields. Okay, so that is every field and I'll show you here when they do Edit Profile. So and remind me, are you using Active Directory? No, you're using that Excel import spreadsheet. Is that right?
Yes, I guess that's what we're going to try first.
Okay. So what you can do back in here, so let's say there's some things once you've looked at this edit profile. So if we look at my screen here, this is what the edit profile screen looks like for everyone. Okay, so name, password, title. So let's say there's some things down in here that you don't want to show. You're like, we don't really use the fax anymore, and you want to just remove it. You have the ability to do that.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I'll show you basically how you can do that. So in here, so once again, it was application settings, manage people, manage the profile fields. So what you could do, like I said, if you were looking at any one of these, so there's a phone number, email, profile. Okay, so any of these in here.
Oh, facsimile just below there, yeah.
No, there we go. So you could restrict the field, which is basically do not display it.
Ah, okay, good.
Now, Here's the key for you, Dan and Brom. You guys are going to be power users. So when you go to that edit profile screen, you're still going to see it. There's nothing that can be hidden really from a power user. So sometimes that's confusing. You're going, I swear I just turned that off. So if you really want to test it, you need to impersonate what we call just a typical internet user and see how they would view it when they go to their profile. So keep that in mind. Sometimes that does really throw people off because you're like,
Yeah, that's good to know
I
that.
changed that. Yeah, so you can come in here and change any of how they respond. They can edit it and view it, only allow them to edit it, only view only, where you're going to go make the change for them, which would be a lot of time on your part.
Mm-hmm.
So you control all that. And this also, the reason I wanted to bring you in here, because you were talking about that profile completeness, you can decide. So let's say here, home address, if that's really important to you. Notice right now it's not checked, so it does not include it in the profile completeness
So you have that as an option. That's great, yeah.
Yep. So you'll notice that you can
Another question that just popped in my head. Do we actually get to see the individual's login name and password?
You will as a power user, yes.
Okay, because in the past, with the previous system that we had, I did not have access to passwords. And people were saying, well, I can't remember my password. And I said, so I would do a password reset, and then they would go, well, I've forgotten again. So,
okay.
So it was like generating lots of extra work.
No, and I just thought about that question. I answered, I think, before I actually processed it. So I'm on my site right now. Once again, I'm a power user. So if I go into this individual's, I can edit profile here, or once again, I can always go there. If I go look at their profile, that's the one thing that you won't see. Now, what you can do, you'll see the username. Then you could come in here and just put a new password in and allow them, next time they logged in, to do a forced password.
So I can do a, yeah, that's it. That's even better than what we had, is where it gives the administrator the control to actually do the reset themselves.
Yeah, you can do that.
So that way we at least have, and can you copy, I guess when you do a forced password reset, is there any way of knowing what that password is? Or does it?
No, not. Yeah, because initially, I could put in, somebody's initials.
Okay, yeah. So basically, if I wanted to say the password's 1234, and I click forced password reset, that will be the password that they will receive.
Correct.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
And then they can choose whatever they want. Yeah. Now, when you're doing that Excel import spreadsheet, the very last column, it wants to know when you're first generating that, do you want basically the first time somebody logs in, it forces them to reset their password. And remember that last column, if you want that, just true in there. And then that's what triggers this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. I think what we're going through is basically some good protocols of how do you do that and why should you do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the other thing why we're in here, which is going to be really critical, once again, to you three as kind of the site administrators with that power user permission, is when you go to anybody's profile, so this person, Daniel, you will always see this right-hand corner information. They will not. And this is a good thing because this is your ability as a power user to determine who ultimately ends up with that power user permission. So let's say 6 months from now you decide that, you know what, so-and-so really should be a power user. You could go to their profile, switch them from an internet user to the power user, which gives them that cog to go behind the scenes in essence.
And what is the definition to non-intranet user?
Okay, so these, pretty much. A non-internet user, kind of how I explain it is, let's say you got a business card vendor, and so they don't, or they should not have access to the internet because they do not work for you. So it doesn't use a license, that's a good thing to know about it, but it does create like a little business card so you could search upon them in the people directory, find their name, email address, phone number so you can contact them.
So it does provide information about, and then there's likely to be a few people like that will say, oh, here's John Smith from company XYZ. Exactly.
So John Smith does not have access to your internet. It just is a way for you to keep their contact information.
Excellent.
And then this one here, Ray, this everybody else, there's going to be a handful of you that ultimately have that power user permission. Everybody else, for the most part, will be internet users. And then what you can do, so let's say that you've got a person that's kind of the head of HR, and that person needs to have full permissions in their HR content area to upload content, to build out as many categories as they want. They still remain as an internet user, but what I'll show you here very shortly is we can take an internet user and give them what we call an administrator rights in different areas of the internet. So they may have full rights in here, but when they go to this certain department, they're just then a consumer. They can read the information, but they can't do anything with it. So that's another thing that you guys as power users have the ability to do, is say, all right, you need to be an administrator of HR, you need to be an administrator of the IT content, and once again, you can have 3 or 4 administrators. It's just going to be what's best for you guys.
Okay, so basically, if I've understood correctly, administrator is more content specific.
Exactly.
Rather than the management of the site.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the entire management of the site is basically what you, Dan, and Brom will be set at with this power user.
Okay.
Everybody else will be an internet user, and then you can give those individuals different kind of permissions to work and have more functionality in certain areas.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, that's usually the big selling point with the internet, is the ability to kind of set those different permissions throughout. So yeah, the only ones that will see this power user cog will be you guys as a power user. All right, let's see where we're at. So we talked about the profile, so you know that you can basically hide anything you want to. This is where you can decide if it basically should be a part of that profile completeness score. And once again, that was the application settings. I went to manage people and then manage profiles. All right, up to this point, Ray, any questions?
In regards to the profiles, my thinking was the following, is as people start to get familiar with the intranet, I'll be able to see what percentage of completeness they have for their profiles, and I can send them an email saying, hey, you got to go back and fill this out, please, so I can monitor that. So that was my sort of thinking in terms of making sure that this can get done efficiently.
Yeah, there's, and I'll show you today, when you build out the top menu, things can be like departments as a header. It's not clickable. These are content areas. There are things that are applications. People directories and applications. It's like a pre-built module, and you just have to decide where it should live for people to access. Well, there's another application. It's called analytics. So the analytics for my site are housed under this header. So I'll just show you what you were talking about. And you have it. We just need to decide where it should basically live on yours. So you can see in here, let's see, profile completeness right here.
Oh,
so you can come into profile completeness. It's going to then give everybody, okay, to give out their score, okay. And then at the bottom, you can export the list if needed to.
So 1.0 is 100%, I take it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, you do have the ability to, let's see, we'll expand. Oh, so export all pages or just single pages here. Okay. So that'll kind of give you a pretty good glimpse of maybe who needs to work on the profile.
Oh, that's great. That's very useful.
Okay. Yeah, so you do have the analytics. All right, the other thing we're looking at, profile. Let me go back to edit profile, because this is going to be another thing that you guys as power users have to really think about is when somebody goes to their profile, so you're encouraging them to update it, there are 3 areas that basically I think are of huge benefit, but they have to be built out prior to others being able to utilize the functionality. So if I come in here, maybe I have an expertise in Photoshop and InDesign, who knows. So they can come in here and update their expertise. Now this drop-down list, okay, Adobe Products is a category, the expertise, Illustrator's underneath it. You guys would have to really kind of think about, okay, with what we do, what do we consider as expertise? Now typically, what I kind of recommend to people is go to your HR, because when you guys post for jobs, that's exactly what they do. They put the expertise that's required for that job. So you could have administrative skills.
So is expertise referred to as keywords or tags?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they'd probably be like more, I guess, maybe like a, well, it could be used as both, but it's searchable in the people directory.
Okay. So while we have to pre-populate this area, so
Mm-hmm.
in the case of expertise, what we would do, we would say orthotist, prosthetist, resident, intern, consultant, owner, employee. Those are, wow, pardon me, sorry, I'm thinking something else.
Yeah.
That's the categories
Mm-hmm.
of, I fringed out into a broader area, but orthotist is
Okay.
like employee is not an expertise, but that's just basically the subgroups. So anything to do with obviously normal job functions or education
Mm-hmm.
or learning skills, we would pre-populate.
Absolutely.
I see you've created subcategories like
Mm-hmm.
Adobe products.
Yep.
So basically we would populate the expertise area.
Correct. So you need to think about, so like a category, a bucket that the expertise actually would fall into.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times you might have, like, let's think about your administrators. Everybody probably, uses Microsoft Office. So you could have a category called Microsoft Office, and then Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook. Those
Mm-hmm.
things could be your expertise. And you can do the same thing, depending on how you want to use this. So once again, depending on the culture of the internet for you guys, you may or may not want the interest. What it allows, obviously, is for people to connect with their other coworkers, outside of, I guess, kind of your typical office environment. Now, if you, once again, the list needs to be set up. So once again, there's the category, and then the hobbies or the interests that would fall underneath, maybe, different movies and things of that nature. Once again, it does need to be created. Now, if you choose not to use the interest, what I would recommend is, once again, you go to that profile where you guys as site admins can go to application settings, manage people, manage profile fields, and you can remember you can turn these off. I'd probably just turn it off so that people didn't even know it was there.
Yeah, I think we're going to leave it because one of the topics that was discussed is the group seldom gets together to socialize, and they're looking at creating more information and opportunities to get together.
This would be perfect. Then.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So basically one of the activities they started last year was curling. So they were talking about, well, we could do golf, we could do, and people were starting to get excited. Oh, well, who else is interested in that? So definitely we'd populate that with,
perfect.
Kind of the samples that you have there in terms of, team-related activities or who knows what. Stamp collecting.
Absolutely. Stamp collecting, yes, absolutely. I know I can't remember what group it was, but I checked in with them later, and they absolutely loved the interest because same thing. I guess there was an individual, and they put a really unique interest in there they didn't think anybody else would be a part of. And there was like 3 or 4 other people that thought that they were just kind of weird and nobody else kind of liked it. And so they found other people with the same bizarre interest, and they were very excited about it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the nice things about people, when you start to look at, what's commonalities amidst people, it's what you least expect.
I know.
And in TV shows is a great one, or music is, the person who's could be the very conservative person is a heavy metal fan. And you go, I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, it's a little gray-haired lady in the corner that, just loves, White Snake and all those heavy metal bands. You just never know.
Yeah, it's because I've been shocked. Like, I would never thought you were a diehard whatever fan.
Exactly. So yeah, it'd be a great way for them to connect at a different level. Okay,
now,
so I'll show you how to.
Will we cover how to create those lists in content? Or
I will. No, I'm going to show you that in about 5 minutes. Actually.
Okay, great, awesome.
So while we're in here, the only reason I want to talk about bio is I do recommend that you really encourage them to create a nice, 1 or 2 really solid paragraphs about their bio. And the only reason we encourage that is it's actually searchable up here in this top level search. So if there's something in here and somebody's keyed that in with a certain keyword, their name might populate based on that. So it is searchable via the top level search here. And the other one I wanted to show you, which is something you can build out, is what we call additional information. So you have expertise, you have interest, and this additional information. Now, this is information that you don't technically maybe consider as an expertise, but it's still good to know. Like for a lot of other organizations that aren't healthcare oriented, who else may be CPR certified?
Yeah, no, that's very, actually they did run into that a few years ago. They wanted to encourage their members to take CPR.
There you go. So you could add that.
Mm-hmm.
Other things, I've had other organizations want to know if, same thing, is there anybody that's a notary on staff who has a CDL license? So just stuff that,
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's a little different with what they need, but you can create this additional information. Now, before I show you how to create these, keep this in mind, additional information, expertise and interests, they're searchable, but they're searchable via the people directory, okay? So if somebody goes into the people directory, you'll notice that it's typical search. They can obviously use the buttons here. Obviously, they can filter by company, department, or location. But if they go to the advanced button, then they can maybe say, hey, is there anybody that also likes creative writing? Then they can search and find those other individuals.
Oh, very neat. Yeah.
They're creating an Excel spreadsheet and they're just really struggling today. Who else within the organization?
Oh yeah, that's
can maybe help you?
the whole thing that we're focusing on is there's a hidden talent out there that that we need to find.
Exactly. Now, as you know, Ray, the more and more you add, obviously it's going to really narrow. So here I'm saying you've got to obviously be an expert in Excel as well as speak Spanish, and maybe you got to be really good at flower arranging or like flower arranging. So that'd be an odd search, but searchable. Now, here's the additional information. So if I needed to know if, we had a health and safety officer, then I can select it here. And then obviously once you've identified what you want, then I can see that these would be the individuals that maybe I could reach out to for assistance with my Excel spreadsheet. Okay. So expertise, interest, and additional information is searchable via the people directory utilizing the advanced button.
Great.
Okay. And then the bio, remember, is searchable up in here. So if they did have something up here, it's searchable.
Yeah, bio will be useful too, because for the association elections, we ask for the bio of the people that are being nominated as candidates.
Oh, okay, perfect.
So, and that's always been, oh, I don't have one. Well, make one.
Exactly. So that would be great.
Encourage that. That will simplify a lot.
And the other thing on that top level search, not only will it pick up things obviously in people's bios, you can also, people can go directly to the people directory and look for somebody, but they could also type in somebody's name and then it would go open up their profile. Maybe they wanted to put something on their timeline. Okay, so just different ways you can find people if needed, their manager. Okay. All right, now what I wanted to show you is kind of tie all that together and show you, from an end user's perspective, that drop down. Okay, now you need to know how to set it up. So I'm going to go to your site actually, and once again that's application settings, and it is under manage people. Here's the manage expertise.
Ah, gotcha.
Here is the manage interests, and then the additional information. And the nice thing about it, if you can set up expertise, interest is identical. It needs a category, but yet you just, instead of an expertise, you're going to add
started that. Yeah,
oh, you did. Look
yes,
at you.
Actually, I'm gonna get you to help me as we do content management. There's a few things I got confused with, so I can, and I mentioned that to Gareth, and he said, well, I can give you my understanding, but when you do the training, he was quite knowledgeable on the system, which was very useful. So that gave me a lot of a head start.
Perfect.
So this is an example of.
Right.
I may have to supplement this a little bit, but this is where Brahm and Dan will come in. They'll say, oh, you need to add this. But I've started the process with expertise, so a clinician is you're either certified for both, or you're an orthotist or prosthetist. And consultant was me.
Gotcha.
And others that they're going to bring in. And then resident interns are the students. So I try to create categories and then specifics. So if I've done that correctly,
you did it perfect.
Yeah. And technicians, some of them are registered and not registered. So that's kind of the categorization of the membership. The new category that we may add to this is, and there's debate going on now as for what they call non-certified members. Non-certified or registered members. So that would be somebody who sells or provides a service to an orthotist or a prosthetist. So that could
Gotcha.
be an equipment guy.
Exactly.
So we would put in a new category in that area. So we're trying to attract more people to interact with them. But this was my kick at it.
That was very good. And same thing, think about, like Brom. Brom's your IT guy, right?
No, actually, Brahms is a CPO, so he's certified. He's a certified orthotist and prosthetist.
Okay.
He's also a clinic owner. He's also the head of government relations and probably a couple other things. But expertise-wise, he would be great helping create the expertise list because
Yeah, no
he's got his
doubt.
fingers in many, many pies.
And the other thing is kind of think about people that kind of work behind the scenes a little bit. If you got some admin staff, what would their expertise
Yeah,
be?
that's the other thing is
IT.
there's some let me make that a note of that because that's something I've forgotten entirely. I'm gonna put that there.
And same
Admins.
thing, any tech skills like for your IT people that maybe they know cascading style sheets, they know. So sometimes just kind of think, you might need to think about some of the people, the behind the scenes people that have certain expertise for them.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm just gonna put yeah, that's awesome. Good.
But otherwise, you are off to a really good start on that. And did you, I'm going to go back to your, so then did you start to create the interest one?
I believe I started and didn't get as far.
Yeah, okay, so you got the right idea. So
Yeah,
there's that
curling, golfing, yeah.
There you go. Yeah,
And then
perfect.
hobbies, I thought hobbies was a good one to keep as well. And I was going to give some thought, and then there again, now that I'm getting the training, what I found was that I played a lot on my own within Interact, but then I would have to stop for like about a week, and then I would forget what I learned.
Exactly.
And then I'd go back and I go, where did I see that again? And then
No,
Garrett
I did
was
the same
laughing.
thing.
Yeah. But no, that's awesome. Yeah, now that being officially trained, this will be much, much easier.
Very good. So you're off to a good start there. The other one was that additional information, like we talked about, CPR certified and those. And once again, that's under the manage people. But it's up here on the right-hand corner. It says manage additional information.
That one I believe I did not do.
Okay.
Oh, actually, maybe I
facility, you did.
I did put one in. I think I tried to do a picture or something there.
Yeah, it does require. So when you're in this, yeah, you get to decide. So if it's
an
text box,
icon,
that's
yeah.
really the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and I couldn't find one. Now, do you have the specs for icons and images? Like, does it have to be an ICO file, or can it be a PNG or?
It can be, PNG, TIFF, JPEG, all that. So if you found something that, say, out on Google or something that you thought, oh, that'd be kind of a nice image for that, Googled, facility owner images or facility images, who knows, then you could obviously, when you click on choose, then you as a power user obviously click where it says add image, and then you could browse out to go find it.
Oh, okay, great.
And then you get that updated.
So just another quick question. If you go back to that actual facility owner, now does it doesn't preview the image, does it? Like if I've selected an image, when we went to additional information, it showed a big a representation.
So if we go, let's go to my edit profile here so you can see my screen. So there would kind of be the little image where it would show.
Okay, yeah. But in the setup menus, does it actually show the image?
Oh. Yeah, so if you go out and choose it, it would show it here.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Because why isn't it not? Oh, is it because I had not chosen it?
Correct.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That's the default. You'll see this image a lot. It's the default one that's basically throughout the internet. So you're going to see this a lot.
So basically, that if I see that, it means I need to get something.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. The other thing in here, you might want to make sure it displays on the profile, so you might want to check that. And if you want people to edit it, I would recommend that. Otherwise, it would display, but only a power user could actually mark it, and you don't want to be doing that. So I would probably set both of those.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, so basically I didn't get too far in the interests.
Yeah, but right idea. So yeah, so you can obviously talk with other individuals and get your expertise list a little bit broader, find out some of those really cool interests that people have, and then just think about maybe some additional information that may be of value to you once again. So, and then remember that is all searchable via the people directory through the advanced button. All right, let's kind of see where we're at here. So that, we talked about the profile. All right, so that pretty much kind of gets us across this top from an end user's perspective, but not only that, what you can do from a site admin's perspective with changing things. Any questions up to this point, Ray?
No, you've covered a lot. Yeah, no, it's great.
Okay. All right, next area I want to take you in is this application settings, and we're going to look at manage people. Now, a couple things in here. So let's say once you have done your Excel import and you've got, you know, everybody over. Well, then as you add one or two new people, nobody says you have to take that Excel spreadsheet, type those two people in there and import it. You can just add a couple new ones over here going forward if that would be more convenient.
And
now if you hire
one at a time, I take it.
Yes. Yep. Now if you hire 10 people at a time, maybe you do just fill out the Excel spreadsheet again and then, you know, upload it. But if you just had one or two new employees, you can come in here and
I guess the thing that I believe I discussed with Gareth is in this case we have roughly 30 members. So I was said, well, shit, that'll take forever to do 30 individually. Mind you, right. I'm probably exaggerating a bit, but what would be missing is obviously one of the options is I could do the rudimentary information that I know of, and then they can fill in the rest. But I was thinking one of the other options when he mentioned that Excel spreadsheet existed was to circulate that spreadsheet and see how many people I can get to actually fill in that and send it back to me. So it's to create a bit of interest and also to balance out the thinking in terms of that members have a responsibility to assist the administrators and the content managers rather than, oh, those guys do all the work, we don't have to do anything.
Right.
And there's a lot of that around. So we're trying to change it that, you've got to help us out here.
So you are correct. So the very first time, I would highly recommend using that Excel spreadsheet, getting all 30 people in there. It is very quick once you do the upload. Then, 6 months down the road, if you do hire just a new person, then I would recommend just coming in here to manage profile and just adding that new person.
Yep, that makes good sense.
And then once you've uploaded, your 30 people in here, the one thing that's going to be important for you guys as this site administrator is you can then go impersonate. So if I impersonate you, then I can see that you're obviously set to a power user because you have that cog there. And then I could literally go through the internet and see how you, in essence, kind of view
that's very cool. I didn't know that was there.
Yeah, and you'll use it a lot because you got to think about this, Ray. At some point in time, you're going to be handing out permissions. You're going to say, well, the clinicians have access to this, but they really shouldn't see this information over here. So you can impersonate somebody and then make sure that they're seeing what they should see and maybe should.
That's going to be extremely useful. So if somebody phones up and says, well, I'm not sure what's going on here, I can impersonate them and get their view of what they see.
Yes, absolutely.
That's great. So is the yellow triangle under my name an indication that an impersonation is happening?
Yes, because when I log into your site, I come in as that Interact admin, so it knows it's not me. So now that I'm impersonating you, there's that little tag.
Okay.
Now, when you're obviously logged in and you impersonate somebody else, their name will show, and the little yellow dog's ear will show at the bottom.
Sounds good. Now
to get back to you, you'll see here, change impersonated user. So at some point in time, you're done impersonating them.
Oh, okay.
Over here, it says return to my user, and then that would put you back in.
Cool.
Okay. And I'm sorry I cut you off. What was your question?
Oh, no, I was going to say, do you have to log off in about 4 or 5 minutes?
I do not. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I wasn't sure if I had understood you correctly that I thought we only had 1 hour today.
No, based on, because my apologies with the GoToMeeting. I thought if things really got goofed up and you could only attend for an hour, we could break it up.
Okay.
I am good for the 2 hours if
Oh,
you're
I'm
good.
great. Awesome. Let's keep
Perfect.
going. Let's
Yes,
keep going
okay,
until I
great.
fall out of my chair.
There you go. All right, so I'll just actually stay logged in as you, and that way you'll see kind of everything kind of through your view.
Okay.
All right, so otherwise I could have clicked on return to my user. So yeah, so this far column over here you can impersonate. Now, as people, same thing, kind of come and go. Obviously, if somebody leaves, then you can make them, there's a couple things you can do. You can obviously select them and delete them. Now, you will lose that license if you do that, or you can just make them inactive, and then basically, you know, they're just going to be inactive in that people directory.
Why does the deletion remove the license?
That'd be a great question for our tech people. I don't know why it does. But once you've used it and you delete them,
so I would caution
lose that license.
the folks, the Brom and Dan, don't hit delete.
Yeah. And there's the other thing, you know, maybe they rejoin you 6 months later and they're still in your system.
Yeah, so basically make it active would likely be the first thing that they think, that if someone's not going to participate or there's some change of weirdness going on.
And the other thing to be aware of too is if you, let's say that, you know, Brom, hopefully he never leaves, but let's say Brom's involved in a lot of, say, forums and kind of shares his knowledge, you know, via that way. If you delete that person, any knowledge that they added to like forums and blogging and stuff like that actually gets removed out of the system.
Ooh,
if they're inactive, it's still there and it's searchable. So that's a good thing. That's why I usually recommend just make them inactive.
Mm-hmm. So is that the two choices, active or inactive?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're either active, inactive, or they're completely out of your system.
Okay.
All right. So, yep, you've got available users 30. So this also will remind you how many users you have left and things of that nature. Okay. So once again, that was under application settings, and then we went to manage people, and it was the very first one. So this you'll definitely impersonate. You'll use that functionality quite a bit probably. Other things in here, remember this is where this import Excel spreadsheet is at for you if you need it again. Okay, so you always have access to that. So that's the import. Transfer of profiles, this honestly should not ever happen to you guys. This is typically when this happens is, as you see when you first get an internet, we put the site administrators in right away so you can start your training. Well, if somebody's using Active Directory, and then once the Active Directory syncs over, sometimes you'll get multiple or duplicate profiles because somebody was in here and then Active Directory synced and it put them in again. This is basically your ability to merge profiles together.
Okay, gotcha.
But with you guys importing and then adding them one at a time, you probably will never.
Yeah, I think that's not likely unless we start doing, you know, duplicate transfers, or duplicate load ups, I should say, imports.
Absolutely. So just know you have that ability if that ever does happen. So it is a possible, if it's called transfer profiles. Now, manage rewards. Are you guys going to use the rewards?
I'm not sure what that is.
Oh, well, it's a fantastic function. Let me tell you how it works. It can be set up two different ways. Now, on my site, just to give you kind of what it would look like, you have to set up the module first, okay, which I'll show you here. And then once it's set up, there's a widget, and it's actually called the rewards widget. And then what you can do is you can actually then go out and acknowledge people. Maybe they went above and beyond their job description that day, and you just want to say, hey, thank you so much for your help. So once the widget's set up, I can give recognition and identify. Right now I need to update my points. Right now I could not recognize anybody because I've used all mine during demos. But I could identify somebody. I can say, James. I can say, and I can obviously just give them 1 point. I can give them 10 points. I get to decide, but the default is 3. You know, and I would just give a reason. You know, thanks for. You know, maybe Brom ends up going in and adding a bunch of different interests or expertise. You know, I like to thank Brom for, you know, creating the interest in the expertise list or whatever. And then when you click on save, then everybody would be able to kind of see that somebody maybe went above and beyond today. So it shows that I basically awarded 5 rewards, and you can change this. 5. Ours on our Interact internet is called donuts, so you give out donuts like in Homer Simpson.
Okay, yeah.
So We give out donuts to people. And I have one group from California. They give out oranges to people because they're obviously highly invested in the orange farming industry.
So it's a feel-good function.
Exactly. And it's really easy to set up if you choose to use it this way. Now, I do have other organizations that take it a step further, and you can actually set it up to where, let's say that when it's all said and done, you end up with, 20 points. People have given you points for this and that. Well, you can also redeem those points for maybe a Starbucks gift card, movie tickets. Okay, but here's the catch to that. You need to have a budget for those items, obviously, and people usually, when they redeem something, they want it now. So you have to make sure that those are on hand, So it can really be set up two different ways. Like I said, one is just truly peer-to-peer recognition, and the other one is peer-to-peer recognition, but they can then redeem those points for things. So when you come back to this Manage Rewards area, so initially it's going to show you all the people that's in your people directory. And then what you guys just need to think about is, how many points should we give people, and then how long should they have to use them? So I would probably recommend for you guys, if you're going to use it, set it up for an entire year. You don't want to be coming back in here every 3 months messing with this. Okay? And then what you do is to do it on a bulk. You could come here where it says add allowance, and then you can say, well, we're going to give everybody 50 points for the entire year or whatever's kind of up to you. And then the date range. Okay, so maybe they go like January 1st to December 31st. And then once you save that, then obviously it's going to give the, 50 points or 100 points in here. And then when that individual goes like I did and clicks on that give recognition, they'll see how many points they have. And then they can decide of those points how many they would like to then kind of push out to somebody else. So that's the first thing you have to do, is people have to have points in order to acknowledge. Yeah. Then the rewards here. Now this is if you take it a step further and say, all right, we're going to have a budget. We want those gift cards. You give it a title, Starbucks gift card, you click choose, you've Googled, you got a little image of Starbucks. The reward value. So if you're going to use this, what we recommend is, if let's say that Starbucks gift card costs you 20 bucks, you might make them get 40 points to redeem it. So a lot of times we'll see that they'll double it. So it takes 40 redeemable points to get the $20 gift card or whatever, but completely up to you guys. And then you basically just make it active and you click on save, and then they can redeem them. Awards, what this tab does, basically it just brings everything into view. You would see who received it, it was awarded by me, and how many points were given out, and basically the date. And you could export that list if needed. So it's just basically a recap of everything. And then if you do use it where they can claim things, gift cards, movie tickets, here is basically when they click on redeem, ultimately it keeps track of who claimed it, what reward they wanted, how much it was worth, when they redeemed it, and then once again you could export that list to keep track of those. So what it looks like really from, say, if we go to your profile here, so if you end up setting it up, like I said, that's the first step. Then there's a widget that brings it a little bit more to the forefront so people can go directly and acknowledge people there. Let's say that somebody has given you a bunch of points and you want to know what you can basically redeem your points for. When you click rewards, it would tell you that maybe you've got 50 points, and then over here on the right hand side it would show you a list of products. Box of chocolates, 30 points, a bottle of wine, 100 points. So then you could select which one based on how many points you have you want to redeem it for.
And so there's no this is a great tracking system, but actually the person, we have to physically figure out how to get the person the prize.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the other thing you really have to think about.
Or there really is no prize.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure that'd go over well.
Yeah, you send them an image of a box of chocolates through the email. There you go.
And then I'm found in a back lane the next day.
Exactly. So yeah, if you are going to utilize that, obviously it has to be very well thought out. You have to have a lot of those items. And if you end up using it that way, let me know, because there's one other component we need to set up, what's called an administrator of it, because let's face it, if you go to redeem it, somebody needs to be notified that you just redeemed for a box of chocolates.
Exactly, yeah.
So we'd have to
let me give you some thought. I think that there's some potential here for, just basically to, I think the value is more in people starting to recognize that things are getting done or the
Absolutely.
contributors are making or adding value to the experience?
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, probably about 95% of the organizations I work with use it just truly as a peer-to-peer recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't, I mean, some obviously, because they've had, the only ones that usually can do the rewards one, to be honest with you, it's because they already had something similar to that in place, and if
Right.
they took
Yeah.
that away, they would just cause total mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, people like their perks, and I don't blame
They
it.
do.
Like
They
if you
do.
can get, my wife gets Tim Hortons coffee cards, and she loves those.
Absolutely. So, and it doesn't have to be real elaborate stuff. It's not like you got to redeem for a Kindle or a laptop. It literally could just be movie tickets and gift cards and things like that. So, but keep that in mind. Yeah.
I
So
certainly will.
yeah. So under manage people, when you guys see the manage rewards, that's the initial setup of it. All right. Otherwise, if you guys are, which I'm not sure you guys are, if you are utilizing single sign-on, this is where this kind of gets taken care of. And if you are using single sign-on, our tech people walk you through that. I am not a tech person, so I never see how this gets set up.
So what would be the advantage of single sign-on?
What it helps out is, let's say you've got a bunch of third-party apps that you use on a day-to-day basis. We got a lot of people that use ADP for their employees and things like that, or maybe they've got a system to track their vacation and the holidays. So once they're logged into the internet and then they go and log into one of their third-party apps, it automatically signs them in.
Oh, I see.
So they don't have to use the username and password. So it's.
I don't think we have that mainly because the members here are the one big difference. It's not a single company. It's like 7 different companies. So yeah, so there's less of that function. So
okay, so yep, you don't have to worry about that at all then. All right, the next 2 areas that are going to be really important to understand is obviously how your top menu gets built out, and then the ability to provide security to the different areas once you've built it out. Now with the top menu, as you guys know, it's going to be extremely important. So when you're creating, you're thinking about, okay, what do we need up in here? Biggest thing is to think about from an typical coworker's perspective is what's important to them, and then can they find it? Does it make sense? If they go to forums, does it make sense that it's here? If they come into here, would they expect to find this, in this particular area? So really kind of thinking about it, obviously, as you know, is going to be important. Looks like you've got some built out already. Board of Directors.
Yeah. Now I think the what I ended up doing and discussing with Gareth was. I think I may have misunderstood the logic a little bit, and the debate was, and I'm hoping to get your input on this as well, is I created the headings for the nav bar.
Right.
Pretty satisfied with that. They're customized to what we will likely need. Where I sort of went into a little bit more too much detail is what's really more efficient, to have a detailed drop-down menu as you're seeing for forums, or is it better for them to navigate to the home page of that heading and then to pick?
Okay. Now here's a question for you. So forums, I just went to the board elections. Are you truly wanting to build this out of as a forum where you can ask questions, you can discuss things?
Pretty much, yep.
Okay. What you've built out is what we call a content area. Now, here comes a little bit more terminology because you might end up restructuring your top menu.
Yes.
Basically, a content area is almost, I consider it like your office. So if you just got hired and you got your new office, what would you need to do? Well, obviously, you're going to house content that's specific to you. You're going to have categories to house those pages because those are folders. You may want a calendar. Okay, so it's basically you're setting up almost like an office area. So if we looked at, board of directors need a place to house documentations that are important to them. So that's probably perfect to have them as a content area. Just to give you a brief preview of what can be added to a left-hand menu of this. And this is our next training actually showing you how to build out these content areas. But these are all the potential items that a content area can have. Menu areas are basically administration. And what it does is like mine's a horrible example. My demo site's really dark, so it's kind of hard to see But if I go into, say, human resources, for example, it's content area. So here you would expect to find content pertaining to human resources. They can have links in here.
Yes.
They can have, obviously, their categories to house their specific documentation. This is a menu where it just basically allows you to say, oh, I'm looking for new hire information. It's probably under this menu.
So the menu is on your far left, and you've arranged it with the widgets on the right-hand side of the page, where it's categorized: best practices, career information, helpful links, etc. So I think this is where I got a little bit confused. Was actually, if you just walk me through your nav headings and how much drop down you have, that might help me sort of. I think where we ended up having the discussion, or where the discussion with Gareth ended up being, was that I should probably move most of what I have in the drop-down menus or drop-down headings to what you've just done.
Now, what you could do, so there's 4 things a menu or a top item can be built out in. I want to as a header, so it's not clickable. It's just verbiage.
Yes.
Departments is a header, okay? But then under departments, I'm going, yeah, I do need HR information, or I need marketing information. I would know exactly where to go. And I'm expecting, once again, to find specific content that relates to them. So you could have, you know, for your healthcare, maybe you have clinicians and they have their own content area and things like that. So, but same thing, it needs to, you could have a header. Now what I noticed on yours is, like board of directors and committees. When I go here, board of directors / committees has its own content area. So it has a left-hand menu.
That's the first one I did and played with. And I was experimenting and I was learning as I went, so I wasn't quite sure what I was doing here. So the heading is clickable. It brings you to what I consider to be the home page.
Now here's a question
the menu
for
on the
you.
left,
Yeah, does board of directors, because you've got it here and you've got it here.
Yeah, see, I guess I'll explain my thinking, and I think you're pointing me in the right direction here. Is in theory, one option would be just if you make BOD / committees as a clickable item, it forces the user to actually click on that and end up on the home page.
Absolutely.
While in this one, I think this is what I would do with this particular heading, is it would no longer be necessary to click Board of Directors, Nominating Committee, and Government Relations Committee, because basically what I was doing was I was listing the board and the 2 main committees.
Okay.
So in this case, you could probably take out Board of Directors and leave Nominating Committee and Government Relations, because if you click on Government Relations Committee, I have not built the page for the home page for those.
Right. Now, question mark, with board of directors, this is going to be pretty locked down security-wise, so only it's information that the board of directors should actually have access to?
That was the thinking, yes.
Okay. But now it says board of directors and committees, so with the, just got log daters tight, with the committees, I mean, do we need 2 separate content areas? One's only for board of directors and then another one, the other 2 for your committees?
Yeah, see, what I was trying to do based on the information I was reading and recommendations was not to overclutter the nav bar.
Right. I still think we could get away with having a board of director having their own content area.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Yeah, see, that's the input I wanted to get from you, is what's the most likely thing, and you're kind of taking it into more specifics. If we actually had boards separately, and here's the sub-question to the nav bar itself. My first try was to just have a single row for the nav bar, but when I started to look at what we really needed, we ended up with 2 rows.
Yeah, sometimes that will happen.
And is that a bad thing to have 2 rows?
No, we definitely don't recommend any more than 2 because it's overwhelming for people.
Definitely, well, put it this way, I think well, set for just maintaining a two-row system.
Yeah.
And then if most of this stuff is moved over, like news, I think that can be reduced down to almost nothing. But there again, I was doing the same thing. I was practicing creating the headings before I actually found out about menus within the home pages.
Yeah, so what, like educational activities, is there a ton of information? The only time you're going to create something as a specific content area if you have a lot of information that you can justify building a nice landing page for.
Okay, at this point, no.
Okay, so that
But
tells us that maybe it could be a menu item. So maybe we
yes.
had a content area called news. Then we had a menu called educational activities. So it's the educational activities. And then if I need to find information about educational activities, I click it, and then there's my information.
Yeah.
So we might be able to take a lot of these individual content areas.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally
So
agree.
that'll help you out.
Totally agree, because I think that was where I left it with Gareth before we started the training, is I needed to get a better sense of what was going to be, A, I needed to learn about the system, and two, get a better sense of what's the most appropriate way to go about it. And I totally agree, is I think most of the, like with the news, I was, in my head, I was sort of doing two steps in one. Well, what kind of news do they need to hear about? Those are the likely menu areas that you're seeing.
Yes, those are your menus. Beautiful. Because otherwise, if you think about this, Ray, if each one of these are content areas, which they are, that's a lot of extra work, because that means widgets for everyone.
I came to that realization after a while. Oh my God, I have to create all these home pages.
I know.
And then content.
So certified be our process. So ideally, going with that concept, what we could do, we would go under here, and this is the same thing. This will be, you can get started on this, but this will be the next training. I would do add menu item. And that's where it would be certified. Is that what it was called, certified
Yes,
VR
that's
process?
correct. Yep.
Okay. I always choose links with expanded categories, so we get the ability for it to expand with the categories underneath them. Okay. So links with expanded categories. I typically don't tell it to expand the menu by default, because what happens if you do that is, like I said, these menus are dark based on the theme, but what happens when people come into the area, it automatically opens them up, and if you've got 5 items under each one, it can be very daunting. But if they're closed up, let them pick what they want. Oh, I need wellness information. Yeah. Exactly. So
see, that's what I liked about the menu system on the left, is that it immediately points you to an area, to a category. Yeah. And then, oh yeah, that's what I want, social news, and I click on that, or I select the downward pointing arrow to find out about, oh, what else is under there.
Right. And right now, because we don't have anything that lives under here, you can't open it. But, you know, if you're truly going in the order that, you know, this was probably the most maybe important news or what people use the most, then what we could do, because it always adds it at the bottom, we just bump it up, and it now starts to bump it up in the in the left-hand menu. So yeah. So eventually we could work its way up.
So yeah. So what I would do is probably transfer over as we. I don't know what's best. Should I do that before our content manager training, or we can do it on the spot?
We can do it on the spot, because that's exactly what we're going to train, so we can actually use your site.
Oh, that's perfect. That's awesome, because that would be good, because I'm very happy that we're recording the sessions, because you're adding a greater depth of knowledge as we're going through the functionality of the site here. And there's a lot of stuff there. There again, if I would have gone back and read or, well, I didn't actually have access to the
community.
The community. and I went, well, what do you mean I don't have access to your community in demo mode? How am I supposed to learn this?
Yeah, so hopefully after, and this is usually when we go through this first training, it does spark a lot of conversation and usually generate different ideas. And then we'll take this knowledge then in our next training, and we can actually work through this content area here and get everything set the way it should be. Get your menus created, get some of your categories even created, so you'll have kind of a working model maybe to go off of.
No, that sounds awesome. Yeah, so that was probably the recurring pattern here, is that I put too much in the in the headers in the nav bar.
Yeah, and going forward, that's usually what I'll tell people is you're only going to make it a content area if you truly have enough content to justify those widgets.
Mm-hmm.
So otherwise, it could probably go in as a menu in another content area.
Yeah.
So.
See, that I think that'll be useful. And given that we're just starting, really, there's a bunch of new areas within the association. Example, educational activities. We literally don't have any, and we're about to create some, so there's not much to say at this point, other than have a discussion about, okay, what are we doing first?
And sometimes it is what it is, and you know it's going to be built out later, it'll be more robust later. So when you are in here, and like I said, good job at least starting things. Just going forward, just a little clarification on the new items, just that way you know. Remember, you've created a lot of content areas.
Yep.
An application, remember this is an example of the people directory. You also have workflow and forms. You would just have to decide where it should live. It's an application. The analytics I saw you already had on your menu, so that's an example of another application. And with the analytics, you'll just have to decide. You can talk with Dan and Bram and decide, should only power users see this, or do you want everybody to have access?
Yeah, I think I just put it there so I wouldn't forget that it existed, because I wasn't quite sure what was provided or how to actually use it effectively. So that could be, I agree with you, is that we should say, okay, we want it to reside here, and then determine who has real access to it.
Exactly. So if we set it, and let's say initially it's just truly you, Dan, and Bram that are power users, we will basically put it to no access for everybody else. And then when they log in, they don't see it, but when you guys log in, you do see it.
Right. No, that sounds awesome.
So we can show you how to do that. Then otherwise, if it's a header, it's like on my site where, it's not clickable. It's just, so departments is a header, and then I have my 4 content areas underneath it. Okay. And then the other one, it can actually be created as a link. So once again, you have a reference, a third-party app that you use. They click it and it goes directly to that source. Okay, because it truly is a link. It wants a URL and everything.
So it'll take you outside of the internet, yeah.
Outside the internet or somewhere inside the internet if needed.
Ah, okay. That's great, yeah. Because one of the things that we'll probably talk about during the content is we want the members to be able to access information and resources from sources that they should include in their discussions. To give you an example, there's 2 or 3 other related professional associations that they should be going to. So we wanted to put, and I think I tried that in one of the home pages where I tried to do a link to an organization called the OPC. And we'll see that somewhere in here but in essence, I want them to think in terms of, well, where should they put links and how should they use links?
Now, you got a variety of different ways you can do links. I mean, you could create a header called, additional references, and then underneath it there's a link. The other way you can do it, to me is extremely visual, is you could create a button that says OPC. I think that's what you call it, or OCP.
Yes, OPC, yeah.
When they click it, then it would go and open up that site. So you could have a couple buttons that would be very visual, and they click it like this one's set to go to. They must not have set up a link to it. But when you click it, let's see if they created the links here. People directory. Yeah, they didn't. The links aren't actually created.
I think I created it in. And there was. I'm trying to think. It's under.
Yeah. So
is that where I want to see, or?
Let's see. This one.
Yes. Let's try that.
Oh, okay. So you created a content area. So this truly is a link to an outside reference?
I don't know. I can't remember where I put the link. It's buried somewhere in here.
Oh, okay. So so it's in here.
Yes, I didn't mean to distract you. I don't know where OPC. Board committees, forums, document library. No, won't be there. I want to see, maybe. I guess, or news. Maybe it's under news. OPC is somewhere.
That's, I
No?
think that was it.
Yeah. Try that.
So yeah, you
No,
got a content area.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think this is where Gareth, yeah, this is the actual page. So this is a link that you're looking at on the right. And Gareth had mentioned that certain websites are not optimized to actually fit within the page.
What is... The only other thing I can think about is if this truly is, oops, where's that home? If it's a link, let me see what that is. I'm just going to copy that.
See, I added the S to HTTP.
Yeah, so secure site.
Yeah, because it wasn't showing before at all.
Now, the other thing you can do, because so this is truly just an outside reference, correct? They don't need it to their own content area. Okay. Okay, let's save that. You could add that if it's something people use a lot. What I would maybe think about doing is you can do it two ways. You can utilize the widget on the organization's home landing page, and then that way when people log in, they could reference it directly from here. And so you don't have to have a content area for it. Now, the other thing I would do, does it have to open up in an iframe? Are they going to actually use the internet, or would it be better for it to open it in its own tab?
That's a good question. Now, when you say open it up in its own tab, in an additional tab rather than in the window.
Yes, that way they're still in the internet, but yet it's almost like they just went to the website itself, and so they have the internet still open, but then another tab devoted strictly to the
that
site.
I hadn't considered at all. I would think opening it up in a separate tab might be, then we're not stuck with sizing logistics.
Yes, so what I would recommend on that is to create a button up in here so it's very visible.
Okay, so just a button.
And then when and they click it and it goes open up that site in a second window, so they still have the access to the internet, but then they have their own window for the OPC.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Yeah, because I wasn't sure when to use what's it called?
iframe.
iframe, that's it. When would you use iframe versus what we just talked about, a separate tab?
When, honestly, when I ask people about that, how, are they, when they're in that site, do they use it a lot? I always recommend it open up in its own tab. So there's it's bigger, it's more functionality. The iframe one, here's the odd one I've seen people use it for. Well, two reasons. One thing, they had a ton of different locations, and they used the iframe to bring in like weather.com. So when you logged into another location, you could always see. And then the other one put on traffic. They had a website for a traffic one. So people leaving could then look at their routes going home. And they just made it kind of, so I always kind of like the one that I'm not a real big iframe putting it in the middle of my page because I think it just takes up too much space.
Yeah.
Just give them a button. Like we're so used to our phones now. That's exactly the look that people like. Click it and let me go somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So we could, for this, let's say we do this one here.
Yeah, see, I was thinking because iframe was a widget there, I thought that was the preferred first choice as opposed to the option of a new tab.
Yeah, so this would be, so basically what I did is because this one didn't have a link to it, so now obviously you'd have a button that says OPC or whatever. They would click it, boom, they've got their site.
That's awesome.
And they still got the internet.
Yeah.
So
given what we know about what's happening with this site, the other thing that's somewhat related, and I don't know if you want to talk about it right now, but what I was also looking to see was to incorporate RSS feeds. And what I found that OPC site does not have an RSS feed. So it's kind of, you have to go to that site. but there was another news source within the industry that's an American news source, I think that's called, I can't remember the name, but they have multiple RSS feeds. So what I wanted, what we will eventually want within this intranet is that when you go to the home page, that they'll be able to see what the RSS reader is providing, as well as go to the other sources, so that within the context of what particularly the news area, so that they can go get information right away.
Yeah, we do have an RSS widget. Let me see if I have one on my demo site. I can't remember if I have one or not. Just so people can see what it looks like.
I think I was able to get
this one is.
Yeah.
That's the there. It's set to USA Today Sports.
Sorry, where is that? Right left on USA Today Sports. Yeah. Yeah. See, that's what I was hoping to accomplish, and I think if you go to the MOPA site, the RSS feed that the ONP news, I think it's under news. Under news is maybe not. It's I wonder where I put that. People forums.
Yeah, so content areas can also have that RSS widget. Yeah. So if it would make more sense to be specifically, in a particular, content area can be there. If it's something that everybody tends to use, that's when I would say let's put it on the organization's home landing page so everybody sees it.
Yeah, maybe go there. Maybe, I can't remember what we ended up putting on that. Oh, this is the home page here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you scroll down, no, there isn't an RSS feed there.
Oh, here. Oh, you got the Twitter one.
Oh, yeah, Twitter, yeah.
Yeah. But that would be my only recommendation on that.
Yeah, I like what you're suggesting is, we can set up some RSS feeds within the content menu within whatever area we want.
Exactly. So maybe there's some specific ones for news that, would be better housed just to have a few RSS feeds, on this landing page. So we definitely have the ability to do that. Just where is it going to make most sense to be housed?
Exactly.
Where should it be at?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that the intranet actually was a good source of content from a variety of sources, not just being this specific area of where we're living now here in Manitoba, but what else is going on with various associations and within the profession itself.
Oh, absolutely. That's perfect. Okay. All right, now let's take that to that next level. So now we're looking at your analytics.
Okay.
And now that you've built this out, so it sounds like you might we'll restructure a little bit of it, but so let's say, for example, analytics. We know it's going to stay there, but we just now certain areas need to, have access and certain people shouldn't have access. So when you go to application settings, okay, we know you build it out here, okay, and then ultimately when you upload that Excel spreadsheet, this is where that information gets housed. So you'll put in their name, you're going to have to identify what department they're in, and then eventually what will read here will be a list of your departments. It'll tell you basically who is the head manager, and then ultimately how many people are a part of that particular department.
Yeah, I think what's different here, and this is the question, is it's mainly going to be rather than departments, it's going to be facilities.
Oh, that's fine.
So can we change, like instead of, are we locked into where it says managed departments, you can't change the label?
Oh, up in here?
Yeah.
The only way we can, let's see what your other options. So we've got departments as an option, you've got companies, locations.
Actually companies. Oh, I think that's what Gareth mentioned, trying to, if you click on companies, I think I may have actually started that. See, yeah, I can create facilities and companies is the same thing. So there would be 7 companies here.
Oh, okay, okay.
So if I'm correct, if I understand, if I'm in the same on the same page literally as you are with the topic is I would list the 7 member companies.
Mm-hmm.
Then instead of departments, this is where committees come in. So you read
okay.
committees and teams. Actually, that's it. Teams. I think I created a category above called teams, and I can't remember what I put underneath there. So manage. Yeah. If you scroll or pull down teams, let's see what's underneath teams, and then look at. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. There we go.
Okay.
That's I put committees and teams in here. Yeah, and projects. Yeah, basically, well, sales team. I did not take out some of the pre-populated information that was on the demo.
Oh, gotcha.
So basically, yeah, sales team is going to disappear, and so is that's about the only one. Yeah.
Okay, so yep, got a description. Okay, so at mentioning, this is a nice function to turn on. So if you, let's say I found a page that had been published and I wanted to basically be able to share it with this committee, that allows me to kind of share things and communicate as with a group. It's almost like the, how we talked about Outlook, you can have kind of groups created. Well, that's what this would allow me to communicate with these as a group.
Oh, that'd be great.
So yeah, I'd probably recommend you turn those on. And also, if they're receiving stuff, it's nice if they get the notification.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I didn't know enough about those functions, so I basically just did the rudimentary setups, yeah.
So definitely recommend those. Membership types in here, open would mean, a lot of, like on our Interact Internet one, we have like one for like a wellness. So basically it gets created as an open team. Anybody who wants to join, there's a join button and you're automatically a part of the team. There's no membership whatsoever. So anybody can join. Now, this one here, private, if you set it to private, what you're stating is that it's searchable. Okay, so people could find it via the team's directory. But when they see a team that they want to join, they click the join button, and whoever's the team owner then ultimately either accepts them into the team or rejects the request to join their team. Okay, so a little more closed down. Hidden is maybe like for your board of directors where maybe they want an area to discuss things.
Yes, yeah.
They want it so locked down that only they know it's there. It's hidden. You can't search upon it. I mean, unless you're a part of it, you don't even see it in that team's directory. And the only way that you can be a part of their team is if they invite you.
Okay, now, here's what I'm trying to determine. Should committees and the board or the board be private or hidden? Private means searchable, but you can't access it unless you're given permission to, right?
Yeah, they can click a join button and then the team owner gets notified and then they can either accept or reject. So they could see it and then request to be a part of the team. Like I said, hidden is you don't even know it exists. You have to be invited in by the team owner.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's I guess what we're trying to do is one of the, and I think there may be another approach to this. If it were hidden, then no one knows that there's an area for the board or a committee.
Correct.
What we would have to do, because one of the commitments the board has made to the membership is to add greater transparency and greater accountability. Because members want to see or understand that things are happening. And so what we started to do in the old space was to provide information, what the board was discussing. Unless it was confidential, there was kind of a page where the board said, well, this is what we're working on. I'm wondering if the same thing would apply here, that we make it either hidden where the board has its own space that's totally locked down, but they have another area or homepage somewhere where they actually provide feedback to the membership.
Yeah, I think you've got the right idea. So what I would probably do is I would give the board of directors, because let's face it, sometimes they just need private information.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Give them a team, and then just have those, members a part of it. They can then discuss things, and then when they're ready, so let's say they've implemented a new policy. Now it's time to share that out or something.
Yes.
So I would give them their own team just to discuss things and almost have like a secondary office. but then I would also keep their board of directors content area. So now if I'm a end user, I can then see the new policies. I can see the stuff. So this would
Yeah,
be more
yeah.
from an end user's perspective.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, so they have a team space that's unique to them.
Exactly.
And then this is the public page where they share
Yes.
information, yeah.
Yes. That would be probably the way I would do it.
That sounds good.
Okay. Now, so that's the permissions when it comes to like teams are, obviously a little bit different. Now, coming back to this, say this analytics one where you only want to be able to see it, and you and Dan and Brom, well, once again, when we're talking about permissions that are set to this top menu, then once again, now here's where I need to come over here for my manage top menu. Notice everything once you build it out has a lock over here. So
Yes,
security. Yep. So if we go down to your analytics, which should be the very bottom, come on. Right now the way this reads is everyone in your people directory. So let's say you uploaded your spreadsheet and there's 30 people in there. Right now they could actually see it. What you could say is, no, they don't get access to it, but anybody who's a power user, you three would see it.
Perfect. Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
So you just clicked on the lock to get this menu. Okay, awesome.
So I just went ahead and set it for that. So if you just know when you upload your Excel spreadsheet, they will not see it, but you three will.
Great. Yeah, that's great.
Now, let's take it a step further. You got content areas, okay? You have that news content area. Well, we know that that should be probably visible to everyone. It's news. People need to have information to that. Now, a couple things in a content area. So news is a content area. Right now, everybody in the people directory would be consumers of it. They could see it, they could click on it, they could go download content. Okay, they're consumers. They can't create their own content, but they could just consume it. You three, or anybody that are power users, always can see everything. So you'll always see the power user list because they always have access to everything. And what this reads is basically, I'm going to delete it. It was built out, so Gareth or somebody built it out. So the Interact admin built it, so they automatically come in as an administrator. Now with the news, somebody at some point in time is going to have to be responsible for the content. What menus need to be built out? What categories do they need? And this is where you can take an internet user, okay, not the power user. Let's see who's in here. Let's say that you weren't a power user. Oh, the reason I can't find it because guess what, you are a power user, so I can't give anything
Yeah, there's
higher.
only 3 people.
I don't think there's anything.
Yeah, there's only 3 people in the system and they're power users.
Okay, so let's say, we're just going to make up a name, Jill. Okay, so Jill's responsible for a lot of the news that gets reported. Well, I would find her name in here, and then I would click on Add.
Okay.
And what I would do is then I would go through and I'd say, all right, Jill, because we'd have her name here, and I'd say Jill needs to be an administrator, which means she has full rights in the news content area, and that's it. So she can add more menus if she needs it. She can add more categories. She can create pages. She has full rights in that area. Now, sometimes you might have 1 or 2 administrators that need full rights to it, and then maybe there's 1 or 2 other people that just help with managing of the content.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so they can't decide when they need a new category to house the pages, but they can upload and assist with just the basic editing and things of that nature. So they could also come in as an approved author. Now, the difference between these two, an approved author, if they upload and they publish a page, it goes live immediately. They're kind of trusted. If you set somebody as an author, when they say build out a page, they can't publish it. Either an approved author or an administrator or even a power user, obviously somebody with higher permission than them, they basically get notified, they go review the page. Now if they like it, they can publish the page right then and there. If they don't, they can send feedback to the person saying, add another image or change paragraph number 2. It doesn't make any sense. They make the change, then once again, they make the change, the other person would get notified, and once it's approved, then like I said, it's either an approved author, administrator, or power user ultimately publishes it. So they do the work, they just can't publish anything.
That's a nice feature.
And then otherwise in a content area, you're either an administrator, which is full rights, one of the authors helping you manage content, or you're just basically a consumer of the information. You see it, but you cannot basically add items to that left-hand menu. Or you can say, you know what, this department here, you have no access to this news area. So this is your ability to assign permissions throughout that top.
Now, just this may be ahead of it, but I'm just thinking in terms of the blog function.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Does do we have control over that, or as far as I understand, and I think it was, can't remember who it was, I think it may have been you that we discussed this. Each individual has the capacity to build a blog.
Correct.
Now, do they control who has access to that blog?
So here's my first question to you is, do you want everyone to have access to blog, or is it just going to be a handful of people that should be able to blog?
Likely a handful. I'm not sure
Okay.
whether it's necessary to, and this is where you can maybe jump in and explain, is do we need to upfront limit who has access to a blog, and if somebody wants to create one, they approach us, or do we just allow anyone to create a blog?
Well, here's my thing going with allowing everybody right up front to blog. Trying to take something back, people get angry.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're not quite sure that everybody should be able to blog, what you can do is now, first and foremost, a power user, so you, Dan and Brom, can blog today if you wanted to. It's just part of your permission. Let's say that you wanted the board of directors to be able to blog, because obviously the information that they have to say is very valuable. People need to know that information. Maybe you set the head of IT to blog because maybe they're going to talk about power outages and things like that. And maybe the head of HR to talk about, different, benefit changes. So you might identify some key people that you give them a voice, in essence, to communicate. And then what you can do with that, now the blogging is a part of a permission, but it gets associated because blogging is a part of everybody's profile.
Yes.
So it goes on the people directory. So here, looks like your people directory. So right now, if you uploaded your 30 individuals today, they could blog. So let's go ahead and change that right now. We're going to say they're just going to be a user of the people directory. So they could look somebody up. They could, look for somebody's expertise, those type of things. So they're just a user of the people directory right now. Now you guys can blog. Now at some point in time, let's say you got your board of directors in here and you got a group, the BODs. I would create a group called BOD, then I would add them, and then once their name was over here, I would come to the permission.
Define. Oh, that's awesome.
And then I would give them a blog user. And then same thing, maybe identify one or two other key people. And then later on, if people really get interested in, they like the blog, then you can just literally pull them up in here and say, James, type in James's name, add him, and give James the ability to blog.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Other point that popped in is creating groups.
Yes, groups.
So when I throw a question at you, if you want to cover that later, it's okay with me.
No, it's actually perfect. I was going to show you that next, since we talked about board of directors, because you don't want to add, how many board of directors do you have, 5, 7?
There's actually maximum, let me get this right, I'm supposed to know this, 9, I think.
9, okay, that's fine.
But so realistically, it's anywhere from 3 to 9 people, minimum of 3, maximum of 9.
Okay. Just want to make sure they're not already in here. So
no, they wouldn't be.
Okay, perfect. So that's perfect here. So they're not necessarily, they're not their own company, they're not their own location, they're a one-off group. So what you do in here is you would click new group. You would do your board of directors.
BOD, yep.
Yep.
And then save.
And then ultimately what you do is you come over here.
And add.
And then add them. Yeah, so maybe, it's Tom. You type in Tom, hit search, you'll find their name. You put a check mark by their name, and then you can either drag and drop them over here or click add. And so let's say you've got your 9 people in there. Okay, so it automatically saves it. So let's say you've got your 9 people in there and you want to give your board of directors the ability to blog. So once again, I do my application settings and I do manage top menu. And this time under the, and we type in BOD. I'm sure I got that saved. Maybe it just hasn't had time to catch up to it. I'll check that. But I will click add and that'll give your board of directors the ability to.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So anytime you need those one-off groups where they're not necessarily all in the same location, all part of the same company. That's why you have those groups. You can create as many groups as you want and then sign permissions based off those groups.
Oh, a somewhat administrative question. I think I was delaying adding individuals in here mainly because I didn't want them to have access to the site yet.
Right.
So if I were to put in John Smith, let's say I want to populate like the example we're on right now. If I want to add the board of directors names in there,
Good.
Can I add their names without actually granting them access or them having access yet?
Absolutely. You can add everybody in there and just don't give them the URL and their password.
Okay. So basically I can start putting in names. What if I go into actually adding people individually as so I learn a little bit more by creating their profiles. They don't have access until I give them access, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So you could, if you want to, like your board of directors, like I said, there's 9. You know, you could go under the application settings, and you go into manage people, and then like I said, in the manage profiles, then you could just add your new board of directors in here.
Okay.
Okay, and then they would show up in here, and then what you could do once they get added into the people directory, then to create a group of them, because they'd just be individuals in here.
It'll be easier to do, yeah.
Yeah, because then once those individuals are in the people directory, then you could come back to this manage security, come back into your groups, and then you'd be able to, when you search upon somebody, find those individuals, create that board of directors group, and then hand them permissions out as you see fit.
Right, yeah. Good, yeah. So basically, if I were to start that, then as we go through this whole process, then we'll be able to do that in the content management sessions.
Correct.
Okay, so I've made a note here to add some names so that so we can be able to create groups and stuff.
Absolutely. And anybody that's going to be in those other sessions, they'll need up, unless they're just going to watch, but if you really want them to have, you know, be able to get logged in and be able to have some hands-on, they need a profile. And
oh yeah, I'm to send you that, right, yeah. Yeah, so send info of content managers to Sherry.
Yeah, so it depends on really what you want them. If you just want them to observe, then they don't need to have a profile. If you want them to have a little more hands-on, then I would definitely go in, just like what I showed you, create their profile, let them make sure that they can actually log into the site so that when we do the training, they've already been in it at least once, they know their login works, and those type of things. So.
Yep. Okay, and I'm still rounding up a few names, but I think I've got 1, 2, 3 people have said yes.
Okay.
And I think there's 2 or 3 more that I'm asking that haven't gotten back to me.
Okay, excellent. Well, very good. That'll be a nice group, and like I said, that way they'll have the knowledge, and then they can kind of proceed as needed. Perfect. All right, so let's just doing good here. Got about 5 minutes left.
Sure.
All right, so are you pretty good with kind of the managed security concept too?
Yeah, that's okay. A whole area that I knew of but did not know the details. Gotcha.
Okay. Now the other thing I just want to bring to the forefront here is it's under managed content. The ones that you definitely ought to hear is important for people to know about is the managed media. It's really easy to create. First and foremost, you're going to want categories. Maybe have, you know, your logos, and then maybe have just, you know, company, you know, pictures and things like that. Really easy to pick category, and obviously you create a name. So here's one for logos already created. If I want it to be visible, I just click where it says include in interact search. So by creating categories, what you're doing basically for the people that are going to be uploading content and things like that, whenever they go to build or upload a page, it's going to request, once again, that thumbnail image. And when they click on choose, it's going to actually bring them to this media manager where they can then select an image that they would like. Now, They can also, if they don't find, if they're an administrator and they don't find the image, they can do exactly what you saw earlier where they can browse out and find something that they think is more appropriate. You're just going to stock this with things you think people might use, like your logo and things like that. And by creating the categories, it just helps people find things a little quicker,
Yes.
as you know. Just got to refresh that. It's not showing through yet. Now, the other thing is create your categories, and then you can go out, obviously, and add an image. And then here, you can say, okay, well, that really goes into our logos, or that should go into here. So it looks like, yeah, public, obviously, you're saying everybody can see it when they go to the meeting manager. Private would say when you're in the meeting manager, you only see that image. But once you put that image on a page, everybody can see it. So.
Mm-hmm.
If needed, you can bring in multimedia, so you can. But if you had some videos or something like that, they have to be smaller than 100 megabytes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just so a heads up on that. And a lot of times, what I'll recommend, because a lot of times, you know, people are like, well, we have videos, we store them out on YouTube or Vimeo. I would probably, if that's the case, leave them out there, let them store.
Yeah.
And then you can just embed those videos into pages and things like that if needed.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
But you do have a little place, like I said, to just kind of, you know, keep some images for your content creators that need to kind of assign a thumbnail. And maybe they're building a page and they want to insert an image into the actual body of the page. Well, they could use the media manager for some of those images. So just, it's not a high priority, but just know that you can stock it with images.
Yeah, that's going to be useful.
Okay.
Now, I've got the login information, don't I, for our site? Did you send me something new on that, or am I getting confused with the? I know you sent me the workflow. You sent me. I think I must have the login information.
Yours, and I can because I'm in your site right now, obviously. I can go in.
Should be raygio@mymts.net, and I can't remember if I changed the password.
So if you want, I can put in, let me just put in your initials and then I'll set it to force password, and then when you log in, you can go in and put your own in there.
That sounds good.
Okay, so I'm just going to put in RG lowercase.
Okay.
Force password reset. And then we'll save that all the way down to the bottom.
Awesome.
Very good. All right, so that way you can get in there and start playing around again. And then the other thing, not that we'll touch base on right now, but just know in your site you have, you can have multiple home pages. For you guys, I would probably recommend, you know, when everybody logs in, you know, maybe one home page is going to be sufficient. Sometimes we'll get organizations that have, you know, 50 different locations, and they'll have a different home page for every location. So you can just know if you need it, if it does make sense for you guys, you could have multiple home pages, and based on your location, when you log in, you see a completely different landing page. But by default, obviously, this one's set to be the default one. It's the trial site. And like I said, you can add a new home page if you need it.
Okay.
So just know it's available. And this is a new feature. It's called Manage Onboarding Home Pages. You got a new hire, maybe they should see a different home page when they log in for maybe 2 weeks. And then after that 2-week time span, then the next time they log in, they automatically get kicked to the default. Okay. So once again, it may not pertain to what you guys need, but it is there if you decide later on you need multiple home pages.
Okay.
All right, Ray. Hopefully that helped you out quite a bit.
It does. Did we cover everything you wanted to cover?
We did.
Oh, awesome.
So my 2-hour session was.
Wow.
I know. So I'm glad that the timing still worked, that you could attend it.
Yeah.
And we can get it recorded for the others.
Yeah, you've done an awesome job. Thank you.
You are welcome. And Ray, as a reminder, at the bottom of the GoToMeeting screen, make sure you shut off the recording, or sometimes you'll lose it.
Okay, I'm going to do that right now.